The other thing is there's this bubble in the population that we saw in the census data. You know, all the baby boomers had kids. They're all the Gen Yers. So you need to work really hard because you want to be at the front of that in your career, because there's so many people right now competing for jobs, and you need to be the best, and you need to get in there right now. Because if you spend the next 5 years without focus, it will be even harder to compete in 5 years. Sorry, there's a little disconnect there.
I think there was one back here first, yes.
This question's for Mike, just from when you stopped interning and then when you applied for your job and you started working, what was the time in between? Like, did it take 3 or 4 months, especially with the security clearance?
Because I was able to stay in the internship until I started the job.
Okay.
So it wasn't as if the internship ended and then there was some time off. I applied for the job while I was in my internship. And then just when I knew I'd been hired and at my start date, that's when I told Gene that I was going to be moving over.
So that was like 3 months in between? Or
I think, yeah, from about the time I applied to when I started. It was late May, and then I started mid-August. But yeah, with the federal government, I would apply early, or not apply early, but plan on there being a couple months in between when you apply for the position and when you may be starting. So if you have something in between that you can do and there's flexibility,
Yeah.
I recommend that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it says that it's a year, but often if people get a great job, we let them go, because we want people to move on and move up.
Being a student of public administration is important to keep an eye on what DC is doing, and these 3-week stop measures are kind of impacting how everybody's hiring. So specifically, how is the Chicago market being affected as far as budget constraints and hiring?
It's awful. It's awful. We actually had a contract position that's been suspended in our office. So I think it's impacting our budgets. We're not spending any money right now, so it's difficult to run our operations. And there is a hiring freeze in many agencies right now. So they're only hiring very essential personnel. People are also looking very carefully at every baby boomer that's retiring and saying, do we still need that job? Because technology has changed the way we work, so they're rewriting a lot of position descriptions. And so the continuing resolution has created a hiring freeze, and it's making us look very carefully at whether or not we're going to fill all the jobs. There was also a freeze on federal salaries, which has started to encourage, or is encouraging, people to retire that might not have thought of otherwise. We have this high 3 for salary, which impacts your retirement. If people know that if their high 3 is what it is, they're more tempted to retire. That's what we found. So we're seeing more retirements now. So it was a combination of the hiring freeze and now the continuing resolution. It's really put everyone in a pinch. It's been a trying few weeks.
Going off of the just getting your foot in the door, would you suggest applying to GS5s as an individual who will be graduating most likely, follow this point of plan, in December with my master's?
Absolutely. I would get your foot in the door, because I just think, if I remember right, you're at NARA now, right?
Pardon?
Are you at NARA?
No.
Okay. If you just get your foot in the door, yeah, like I said, there's so many opportunities. If you just get your security clearance, you're going to see there's other opportunities. And once you're in, you might need to spend a year at that job, but then you immediately start applying for other jobs. And then again, like I said, with that population development, you're at least in and moving forward in the queue.
And like I know in my agency we have a hiring freeze, but it doesn't apply to internal movement.
Okay.
So like we can't hire a new analyst, but there's an analyst working or another position in another office that wants to move into the empty spot, they can do that. So sometimes just having your foot in the door helps.
Can I go back to the continuing resolution question too? Because I don't want to be so dismal to say we are as a hiring freeze now, but it's going to open up. We are going to get funded again, and I think you're going to see a flood of jobs coming. There's a bunch in the queue waiting to be advertised. So you need to be ready when that happens. Have your resume looked at, get very clear on which agency you want, get clear on your mission, apply for the GCRC internship. You know, do those other things now because the jobs will open up, and you want to be in a position, in the best possible position to compete for those when you can.
I've noticed also that, I'm on USA jobs almost daily, but I've noticed over the past couple of weeks there's been more and more Chicago positions, which it seems to be increasing in the number, so.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it made me happy, so.
Any specific tips as far as, once you find that job, if you feel like it fits your mission, you tailor your resume, your cover letter to meet, the expectations, but what do you think helps to, make you rise to the top? Is it just finding that match, or is it a combination of things, or are there specific things that you can do when you're filling out? Because I've gone through that process before, and sometimes you want to just rewrite everything they've written in their job description so that they actually select you, because once you get to the interview, you can convey how you would meet their expectations, but sometimes writing it is more difficult.
Yeah, I think writing it, you said it, for that job is good. There's always a contact listed. I always think it's helpful to call someone and say, I just want to make sure that I adequately documented my status as a GS9. Because it starts a conversation. You don't want to call again and ask something like, what's a day in the life of this job? You want to call and say, I've submitted my application, and you don't want to submit the application the day it's due. Submit it a week before it's due, before that contact is flooded with other calls. Say, I went ahead and submitted my application, and I just want to make sure that my information adequately documents that I'm a GS9, or ask something very specific about your application. So that's something to do. I also, from having worked in HR, we get thousands of resumes for one job. I was always personally grateful for the person who put on the top of their resume, applicant for position number S0719 program manager, because I knew that resume was for me and in this pile. And that's just something that it just shows attention to detail, and it makes sure that you stay in the right place as your resume moves forward in the system. And it's such a small thing, but I have to tell you, it made a difference. And then, in USA Jobs, there's no requirement for how long your text resume is, but the one you attach, you can always attach one too. When you attach, you should try and keep to one page. I've been in the federal government for 10 years, and my resume is one page. I would expect anybody who's worked less than me to have a one-page resume, because I want to see that somebody is concise. Something I say over and over in the office is, if I had more time, I would make it shorter. So I'm always looking for people who can write concisely and also speak concisely. At executive committee meetings, we have to pack a lot of information into an hour. And we do a monthly report that goes to Washington, to my headquarters, and then on to the White House. And they need it to be very succinct, very clear, because they get it. They're CEOs. They don't need a lot of information to put things together. So someone who can be that concise with their own work experience or their own mission is someone who's going to do very well in the office and very well in the federal government.
Any other questions? Well,
So Annie's not here, but we were just talking in class an hour ago. She said, well, I'm giving up on USA Jobs. I submitted all these applications. I never hear back. And I've heard that from lots of students. You never hear anything. It's like sending it into the void. So what do you suggest then?
Well, we know it's a problem. And hiring reform, which John Berry, the director of OPM, he knew it was a problem, and they're putting more resources into that now, and they're trying to adjust that so that everyone does get a reply. It's not as fast. It's not as fast as Monster, and we know that. We use the same back end, though. I understand it's the same back end system. So it's changing. I think if she does it in the next 6 months, she's going to have a different experience. But it is slower than the private sector because of the security clearances and because of the number of applicants. Right now, federal jobs are very secure, and I think people are looking at them as something worthwhile. And I graduated with a computer science degree in 1999. It was a popular time to have that degree with Y2K, and all of my friends went to the private sector, and they made a lot of money, and I made a good salary. But then I saw them lose their job for a few months, then get a great job, and I just went along and just kept going along, And the industry has changed, and a lot of them are out of work now or have needed to change careers. And I've had great training opportunities and been surrounded by unbelievable leaders my whole career that have helped me transition from being an IT technician to an executive director. And I don't know if you want to try and find a job and an agency or a company that will do that for you.
There's a lot of unsung heroes in the government. People don't realize that their tax dollars really are being well spent most of the time. So I'm sure we're all the time, but I know you got that recorded. So let me ask, how many people who are still here have used USA Jobs to apply? And how many of the people here who raise their hands, how many have never gotten a response back? Yes, no? Okay.
I mean, there's some jobs where I get really expedient response, and some where I haven't heard in like a year, yes, no, or maybe.
Okay, do you use the application manager portion of that? And you can check the status of jobs, and it's still not doing it for you?
I actually,
No, go ahead.
I had a meeting when I was at the career fair. I met with a recruiter for DEA, and I had mentioned to him that I had applied for the previous year's vacancy when he told me to apply for the 2011 vacancy, and I said, well, I've applied for the 2010 vacancy. I haven't heard yes, no, or anything. Like, so I mean, even in a no is like, okay, I understand, we're moving and going somewhere else. But like, I hadn't even heard with him, and I actually he brought me into his office and said, come in next week on Tuesday and we'll talk about it. But and then went through and found out that there was a no, but apparently wasn't sent out. So it's hit or miss. I think like the agency, depends on the agency.
That has a lot to do with it too. How proactive they are.
I've noticed that too, depending on agencies that I apply for, and some are more quick to update it and get back to you versus others when you're still just floating around somewhere.
Those are the agencies you want to work for, right? I mean, they're telling you something about how they're going to treat you when you get into the agency. If I could just say something else, the GSA regional administrator says this, and I just love it, and it's fail forward and fail fruitfully. If you fail, if you don't get a job, call them. Who did you hire? Will this be open again soon? I understand you didn't pick me. There's lots of great candidates right now. I'm sure you had lots of great candidates. What can I do to be more competitive next time? Like, if you're going to fail fruitfully and fail forward, so you're a step forward next time.
Yeah, and they tell it to people who are already in the government. Because I've applied for, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've applied for probably 20 different jobs. And it's always been no, you're not qualified, you're not this, that, whatever. But if you take the time to call the HR person who handled that, I believe they're actually required to tell you what it is that you didn't do right or you could do better next time. So it's worth the effort to make a phone call. And I just want to make one more quick plug. Since I have the floor for SSA, one of the top 10 agencies consistently, not number 1, but always in the top 10. So thank you.
Well, I think we all need to thank our panelists. And one of the things I want to leave with you is that you are all now ambassadors for your colleagues in your classes to tell them about the next session, which will be on April 21st. That will be about nonprofits. But each of the sessions are designed so that you can take information from one and move forward to the next. So the networking session, the panelists all spoke to the importance of networking. Now you have a body of knowledge that you can add to that, and then when you come to the next session, it may have a title of nonprofit, but you will surely get information that's valuable even if you're not planning to work for a nonprofit. And you might come not planning to work for a nonprofit and find out that that is in fact what the arena that you do want to work in. So keep an open mind. As Jean said, make this a habit to advance your career search on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but keep moving forward with it. Okay? Thank you so much. And we do have pamphlets for you and internship information for you, so come right and get that. And I believe we still have food. So you and Eden, bless your heart, you're going to help move this food back to the first floor. And I emailed her earlier and said, can you help us move the food back to the first floor? If there's none left when you get to the first floor, not our fault. So help yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You want to remember the lady last week that I still want to put the story.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for being here.
That was really nice.